The opinions and views expressed by individuals during this broadcast are their own and may not be the opinions of this network, their group, or other organization they may be involved with.
I'm looking at myself, reflections of my mind. It's just the kind of day to leave myself behind. So gently swaying through the fairyland of love. If you'll just come with me, you'll see the beauty of Tuesday evening news. Tuesday evening
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Psychedelic Reporters for this Tuesday, the second, episode 209, I believe was the number, here on NLK Network, the video news podcast focused on psychedelic medicine being reported in mainstream media. Shout out to the guys from Dead Ringer from Kirkland Lake, Ontario for an awesome intro track, originally recorded by the Moody Blues with some customized changes for our show. I am joined by my main joint host, Tara Simpson, along with the awesome Bufo Alvarius. Oh, one and only. Oh, yeah, that too. Who has chosen all of our stories for us. Hello, Tara.
Well, hello, hobbies, and hello, everyone. I'd like to take a minute to introduce Bufo. He's our Sonoran desert toad, or Colorado mud toad. Did you know he emits DMT from his skin? And while that sounds like great fun, park rangers would like to remind everyone, please don't lick the toads.
No, not at all. Not at all. No, you don't want to lick a toad.
No.
Yeah. So we're going to dive right into the world of psychedelics today, because this is my favoriteest article, is right in the beginning. And lesion.org, okay, states VA launches MDMA assisted mental health therapy trial. And this is Veterans Healthcare, May 26, 2026. Who did they?
Yeah. So this is a really neat article. This trial will enroll approximately 80 veterans and compare outcomes between those receiving MDMA-assisted therapy and those receiving identical psychotherapy with an active placebo. The U.S. Department of Veterans Affairs today announced a new clinical trial to evaluate the safety and efficacy of methamphetamine-assisted therapy, or MDMA-assisted therapy, for the treatment of severe mental health disorders, including post-traumatic stress disorder and alcohol use disorder. The new trial comes after President Trump's recent executive order on accelerating medical treatments for serious mental illness. The order aims to increase clinical trial participation and accelerate innovative research models and drug approvals for psychedelic drugs. VA's trial, titled A Randomized Controlled Trial of MDMA-Assisted Therapy for Post-Traumatic Stress Disorder and Alcohol Use Disorder in U.S. Veterans, will enroll approximately 80 veterans and compare outcomes between those receiving MDMA-assisted therapy and those receiving identical psychotherapy with an active placebo. VA is coordinating with the U.S. Food and Drug Administration, FDA, and intends to share data from the trial with FDA. We need an all of the above strategy when it comes to improving mental health treatments, VA Secretary Doug Collins said. This trial represents an important step in safety and evaluating new approaches and innovations for treating veterans with severe mental health conditions. The randomized placebo-controlled trial of MDMA assisted therapy will take place at VA Providence Healthcare System, and veterans will be recruited for the trial from Providence, Rhode Island campus and VA Connecticut Healthcare System in West Haven, Connecticut. The health and safety of veterans who choose to participate in this trial is VA's top priority. Investigational treatments will be delivered in a safe, controlled clinical setting using pharmaceutical-grade drugs under careful quality control, stringent safety protocols, and that were developed with the FDA, and in a setting that includes structured psychotherapy.
Currently, VA is involved in 19 active clinical trials focused on psychedelic therapies for mental health conditions that are supported by more than $23 million in external funding. All in VA research, including research in the psychedelics, is conducted under strict safety protocols, all in compliance with federal guidelines. Psychedelic drugs are a class of substances that are after consciousness or awareness and can be organically or synthetically produced. The FDA has granted breakthrough therapy designation to several psychedelic substances, including MDMA, psilocybin, and LSD, allowing for expedited review of these drugs. Clinical use of therapies outside of research will only be considered by VA once FDA approval is granted. VA strongly discourages self-medicating or attempting to replace other mental health treatment options with psychedelics or any other unprescribed substances. Proven evidence-based treatments are currently available at VA facilities to treat veterans with mental health conditions. Veterans should always consult their healthcare providers before making any treatment decisions. The trial is registered with clinicaltrials.gov.
Yeah, that's a pretty cool article, eh?
You know, the big major thing for me in that article is the fact that it is on the VA thing. It's on like the world's biggest legion. You know, it's like they support veterans. Everybody, they're the people that have been doing this for like 17 since the 70s, you know, that usually weren't like, oh yeah, we don't like those hippies, you know, like and now they're supporting that, you know. It blows my mind.
And I like that they're doing the active placebo, because in all the trials that we know have already helped people, the biggest thing that they keep saying is, oh well, they knew they didn't get the real deal, right? Because I mean, it's very easy to tell whether you've received a psychedelic versus nothing at all.
Yeah.
But the fact that the psychedelic group improved, they keep saying, is the placebo effect, right? That it's because they knew. Well, if you give someone an active placebo that's not the same thing and they don't improve, but the actual group does, well, then they can shut the fuck up finally.
Right. So our next article comes out of newswire.ca. I believe that's Canada, right? and psychedelic assisted therapy access under updated authorized prescriber framework in Australia. And this is with Optima Healthcare. Updated GA recommendations broaden therapist eligibility. You can't even say it. Accept a wider range of treatment settings and reinforce Australia's position as the world's leading commercial market for prescribed psilocybin. And holy shit, no shit.
Yeah, so this is really cool because we've reported on Optima Health Group before, and they've been doing a lot of stuff behind the scenes, including different trials. So this is kind of cool that we're getting a bit of an update now. This was coming out of Vancouver, BC on May 29th, Optima Health Group, and it's a commercial stage psychedelic pharmaceutical manufacturer today acknowledged the final recommendations published by a Therapeutic Goods Administration following its targeted consultation with the authorized prescriber scheme for psilocybin and MDMA. Under the AP scheme, authorized psychiatrists may prescribe optimize MDMA for the treatment of post-traumatic stress disorder and psilocybin for treatment-resistant depression from the company's GMP-compliant production facility in Canada, making Australia the first country in the world to recognize and regulate both substances as medicine for these indications. The updated framework published following stakeholder consultations that closed on May 19th, 2026, introduces material changes to how psychedelic assisted therapy is delivered in Australia. The changes are designed to expand the eligible workforce, open new categories of treatment setting, and accelerate scaling of Australia's commercial program, which remains the leading reference point globally for prescribing psilocybin and MDMA care. The TGA's updated framework is a meaningful step towards unlocking the workforce, settings, and prescriber base needed to further scale psychedelic assisted therapy in Australia, said Dane Stevens, CEO of Optima. After over 2 years of regulated commercial use, no serious adverse events have been reported under the scheme. Australia continues to be the most advanced commercial reference point for what reimbursed real-world psychedelic care looks like, and Optima is positioned to support the expansion as patient volume increases. That's really cool. That's huge.
It is. And I'm really impressed. I mean, it's like this is a Canadian company and they're fucking around with Australia and helping set up the framework. Wow, this is...
Yeah, because they can't do it here in Canada because our governments don't want this. So
and they've been waiting to just hit the ground running, and here we go. Therapy team composition has been broadened. And under this updated framework, the therapy dyad must include at least one therapist registered with a national board, and the AP psychiatrist is required to physically present on site during administration of the medicine, and to conduct real-time patient screening and informed consent. Oh, wow. The second practitioner in the dosing room may be drawn from the wider pool of suitability trained professionals, including psychotherapists, counselors, social workers, and Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander health workers. The AP psychiatrist is responsible for determining qualifications and competency of any additional practitioner, subject to oversight by the relevant Human Research Ethics Committee. Australia's training ecosystem supports a certificate in psychedelic assisted therapy delivered by the Mind Medicine Australia, which has trained more than 750 clinicians. The programs is accredited under Australian medical CPD standards recognized by Hydrox and TGA and offers 127 CPD hours, clinical experience pathways, and a national alumni network. This change opens the door to generally multidisciplinary therapy teams. The TGA noted that the broader composition will support workforce capacity in rural and regional Australia, address shortage, and improve culturally appropriate care. Treatment can now occur outside hospital settings. This is cool. The TGA has confirmed the PAT can be delivered in any medically supervised environment that meets defined safety standards. Sites must provide secure Schedule 8 storage, trained staff, and equipment for clinical care and resuscitation, immediate access to rescue medication, robust documentation, and a location within 15 minutes of an accredited healthcare facility with an emergency department. This presents a meaningful shift from prior assumptions that day hospital or inpatient settings were required. It aligns with stakeholder feedback that less clinical, more therapeutic environment often improve patient comfort and outcomes. Wow.
Yeah. So real world safety profile remains clean. Aggregated data obtained from the TGA confirms no serious adverse events have been reported under the AP scheme since December of 2025. Every AP psychiatrist is required to report patient numbers and any serious adverse events to the relevant Human Research Ethics Committee, the TGA, and the applicable state health department, providing a structured real-world safety surveillance framework. Adverse events and outcome data are also being collected by the Australia Interventional Pharmacotherapy and Psychedelic Assisted Psychotherapy Research Registry and hosted by the Australian National University. This clean safety profile accumulated under regulated commercial conditions rather than clinical trial environment supported the case for the continued program expansion. Reimbursement now spans public and private payers. Well, this is super cool because we know what this means. Coverage for psychedelic assisted therapy in Australia is no longer confined to private pay and now spans both sides of the funding system. Public coverage includes the Department of Veterans Affairs, National Disability Insurance Scheme, and work cover schemes. Private coverage includes Medibank, Australia's largest private health insurer. The combination of an expanded prescriber and therapist workforce, broader site eligibility, and growing reimbursement across public and private payers creates a credible employment pathway for trained practitioners and addressable patient population for commercial supply. And that's really cool because that's something we've always talked about in this side of things is that people can get some of these therapies places, but they can't necessarily get them covered. So it becomes an access point of, accessibility and affordability. So it's cool to see Australia stepping up and even their public healthcare will cover this. So just a little blurb on about Optimi Healthcare is a commercial stage pharmaceutical company focused on manufacturing and distributing GMP grade psychedelic products, drug products for mental health therapies. As a Health Canada licensed pharmaceutical manufacturer, Optimi produces validated MDMA and botanical psilocybin drugs products at its GMP compliant facilities in British Columbia, Canada. Optimi supplies both active pharmaceutical ingredients and finished dosage forms to regulated clinical and therapeutic programs internationally, with products currently prescribed to patients in Australia under the country's authorized prescriber scheme and accessible in Canada through the Special Access Program. So that's where things are a little different. Like you can get some of this here in Canada, but it's going to be a lot of work, a lot of paperwork, and chances are it's going to take a year, and they're still going to say no because they rarely say yes. Whereas Australia is like, let's do this. Let's do this. Let's see if we can help some people. I really like that.
Right.
It's fantastic.
I do too. I do too. It's so awesome. So awesome. So our last article before break is comes to us from military.com. And this states Navy veteran creates an app to track your mental health changes from psychedelics. And after a former Navy SEAL struggled to find help, he turned to ibogaine. Now he wants to encourage others. This is published the 31st, written by Kevin Demansky.
Yeah. So after his life as a Navy SEAL ended, Jonathan Johnny Wilson found it difficult to function in society. After deployments to Iraq and Afghanistan, his mind racked with post-traumatic stress disorder. Wilson tried healing his wounds with alcohol. He became increasingly isolated. Even his own family couldn't understand his pain. He looked fine on the outside, but was fighting ongoing turmoil on the inside. That was one of the most challenging experiences of my life, Wilson told military.com. That's where I really hit rock bottom. I lost purpose. I lost my team. I lost my passion for the job. Wilson tried conventional therapy to improve his mental health, but nothing seemed to work. He finally opted for ibogaine treatment that changed his life. While both federal and state funding have opened more doors for research and understanding of the powerful psychedelic drug ibogaine remains somewhat controversial. Wilson admits it's not for everybody, but it helped him, and he's encouraged other struggling veterans to try it. The former Navy SEAL's experience led him to ponder, what if there was a way to effectively track mental health before it's too late? Hence, he created INVI, Invisible Visible Mind Health, an app using continuous biometrics and behavioral data, allowing users to see meaningful change in their mental health, prompting them to reach out for help based off of real data. Users wear a device around their wrist similar to a Fitbit or an Apple Watch to track the data. If you and I were best friends and teammates in the SEALs, I would ask you how you're doing, he said. I knew something was off, but your response was always the same. I'm good. I'm okay. And it's so uncomfortable, the stigma, that I just left it alone. Now with data, I could call BS. I'm like, no, dude, we're best friends. What's going on? Talk to me. The platform recently received a huge boost when it was named as Performer Team in ARPAH, Advanced Research Project Agency for Health, evidence-based validation and innovation for rapid therapeutics in behavioral health initiative, and federally funded drive to create objective and predictive measures for behavioral health. Wow, that's kind of cool.
It is. It is. So how does it work? Along with using biometric trends, the platform tracks behavior signals through a peer accountability model called the Swim Buddy, taken from the SEAL training. Through analysis, veterans receive a mind score that tracks in factors like mood, stress, energy, and cognition. Another reason Wilson created INVI Mind Health is to flip the script on conventional behavior therapy that relies mostly on scheduled appointments and self-reporting, a system generally ill-equipped for veterans wired to just man up to suppress feelings of depression, anxiety, and isolation. In recent months, several states have passed legislation to fund new research on the effects of mind-altering like ibogaine. In April, President Donald Trump signed an executive order prompting the Food and Drug Administration to explore more medicinal options for mental health treatment, including ibogaine. About 30% of veterans meet a criterion for mental health disorder every year, but more than 28% do not disclose their struggles to even close family members or friends. Personal experience ignites idea. Wilson joined the Navy in 1999, spending 10 years on active duty. He left the military, picked up John Chase stocks and Wall Street giant Goldman Sachs, and quickly discovered it didn't provide the type of adrenaline rush and brotherhood the Navy SEALs did. The loss of a close friend was the signal to jump back into the fray. My friend Nick was killed in a hostage rescue mission, and I don't remember exactly where I was at, he said. I was training that day, looking up to the TV screens, and I started getting texts from my friends letting me know that he had been killed. Then I saw it hit the news feed. Right then and there, I turned my boss and said, I'm done. I'm going back in. Less than 3 months later, I was in Afghanistan with the team. And after he left for good in 2017, Wilson struggled to find his next step. Thought it didn't fit in the world and imagined that it's a feeling veterans have. We absolutely do, he said. Where do our skills translate? Where do we find purpose? I find it through doing mental health and nonprofit work. But man, that first go at it was so challenging that I had to come back in the service and did another 4 years. Meanwhile, his PTSD included bouts of hypervigilance. While riding the subway, Wilson always tried to sit in the far corner seat in the back so he could be alerted to any potential threats. Wow.
Yeah. It translates to depleted energy and short tempers, comparing civilian and military life. I started realizing I shouldn't be reacting this way to people, especially the people that love me the most, my wife, my children. He added, I shouldn't snap at them because they didn't put the glass in the right spot and they didn't fold the clothes the right way. There's a big disconnect between how I'm responding and what they're doing. Wilson's tipping point came when the Department of Veterans Affairs for treatment couldn't. He went to the Department of Veterans Affairs for treatment and couldn't find parking, and was a few minutes late. He said the receptionist scolded him. Fed up, he turned around and walked out. And that taught me that you never ever tried to assume what a person's going through. He said, I'm already dealing with quite a bit. Had I shown up early and had a tough experience, I don't hold it against the VA. I don't hold it against that woman. Therapy has also dramatically changed me, he acknowledged. Roughly 10 years training in the veteran realm was not as substantive. He also tried magnetic stimulation and sitting in hyperbaric chambers before finally turning to psychedelic assisted therapy. At first, he was skeptical, but seeing how it helped a SEAL buddy made him think that it could be the breakthrough he desperately needed. Wilson couldn't believe his friend's transformation. He was on SEAL Team 6, the Bin Laden mission. He got kicked out of SEAL Team 6, got kicked out of the Navy SEALs, and then got kicked out of the Navy for drinking. He said, so you have a real big problem if you're getting kicked out of the United States Navy for drinking, right? He last saw him in Virginia Beach, where he went to a coffee shop, expressed concern about the person he had morphed into. However, his friend Cheese had a drastic turnaround. He was going from being 40 to 50 pounds overweight to having long blonde hair and glowing in his skinnier framework. The friend contributed his positive trajectory to psychedelics. Wilson said he conducted plenty of research on psychedelics before thinking, what do I have to lose? Mind Score and buddies. While the ibogaine experience helped greatly, there wasn't a suitable way to chart Wilson's mental health changes. It led him to create biomarkers on previous foundation he worked for to better underscore how stress, anxiety, and depression affects both the mind and body. We didn't have a score associated with it, but we knew we can kind of tell their trends, he said, and they're trending up or trending down. And when it comes to sleep or heart rate variability, and when we can intervene and support them, it involves pulling data from all wearables, Oura Rings, Whoops, Apple, Garmin, and it's all rolled into quantitative score. That's how Mind Score was developed, monitoring sleep, REM cycles, and heart rate variability. The whole technology platform is based off trends, Wilson said. In the future, Wilson hopes to work with healthcare providers like the VA to implement the INVI platform. He said he's forging ahead, trying to get ahead of the curve of them getting that really, really bad spot. So he's trying to prevent it from getting worse for people with this app. That's really cool.
Oh, I was muted the whole time. Very good article. Very good article. And hey, that leads us to medication time.
That's right, folks. It's time to pay some bills. So stay tuned for a word from some of our amazing sponsors, and then we'll return with more articles UFO has chosen making mainstream media news.
Back in 4 minutes and 20 seconds here on Psychedelic Reporters on NOK Network.
Dirty Dave, award-winning cultivator for over 4 decades. Dirty Dave, prize genetics fueled by advanced nutrients, original OG organics. Dirty Dave, award-winning products available at these fine establishments. Ask your shop to carry Dirty Dave. Contact us at dirtiesdoggies@gmail.com.
Established in 2013, Northern Ontario Cannabis Education and Resources is here for you. NOSER Director Kim Cooper brings you 45 plus years experience utilizing cannabis as a medicine, and she is spreading that education across the North. Don't be a jackass. Say no, sir, to propaganda with NOSER. Find them at www.nocer.ca.
Hey, hi, my name is John Mark, aka Sublimator Warrior, and I would like to welcome you to Smoke Signal in Tyndinaga.
One dab make your whole dome drip sweat. One dab make the homies all dip set. One dab, only really need one dab. One dab.
Smoke Signal is a medical dispensary where you can get all your products and needs.
Vaping a whole bunch. Might just start laying off the blunts. God. Ooey, ooey, gooey, that's a sticky dab. Sticky dab. Might just have to put this one on Instagram. Go and hold it in, feel it in your ribs.
So come and check us out in Tyndinaga. 55 Highway 49 in Tyndinaga. It's on the res, and we're open from 10 a.m. to 8 p.m. 7 days a week.
Hey, dudes and dudettes. Enjoy the show, man.
And we're back from our medication session live here on Psychedelic Reporters on NOK Network.
And we have another stories coming at you from the realm of psychedelic medicine. So let's get at it. All right. So our next article is off of High Times. And this one's a cool one. So, launching your way back to the role of humor in psychedelic integration. And this is written by Lindsay Kent.
Yeah, this is a neat article. Integration after psychedelic experience is serious business, or at least that's what we've been taught. Serious as in dig deep into your childhood, confront your darkest shadows, sit upright and noble with unpacking the meaning of existence. It's disciplined, effortful, and if we're honest, sometimes pretty damn heavy. If integration had a uniform, it might have been a tweed jacket with leather elbow patches, fingers tented, peering at you over its bifocals. And sure, there's a time and a place for that kind of work. But here's the question. Why is seriousness the default for making sense of an experience that is often bizarre, absurd, and unexpectedly hilarious? Why do we flatten something so strange into something so straight? What if we met the psychedelic experience on its own wavelength and used humor as part of the integration process? The cult of seriousness. Half a century ago, philosopher Alan Watts called it the cult of seriousness. This tendency to equate gravity with wisdom. In his view, we'd become so preoccupied with being responsible, composed, and in control that we lost touch with something essential. You often become deaf to the laughter of existence, he said, forgetting it's all a play. This is even more relevant in our culture today. Burnout is everywhere. Anxiety is baseline. And if that sounds abstract, consider the numbers. 83% of working U.S. adults report ongoing stress. More than half say they'd burned out. And 80% report what researchers now call productivity anxiety, the persistent feeling that they should always be doing more, even when they're not underperforming. In other words, we haven't just embraced seriousness, we've built the entire culture around it. I was at an improv comedy class for the first time a number of years ago, says comedian and retreat host Dennis Walker, when the facilitator asked the group of 10 people present why they had decided to join the session for the day. 7 out of them were referred by therapists. That's telling, isn't it? We're outsourcing play. Humor is a sense of what can be cultivated, Walker says, and in doing so, you're developing a lifeline, something that can pull you out of ruminating thought loops and rigid patterns. If it's real, deep laughter that hits your gut, that's medicine. And yet, when it comes to our time with psychedelics, when reality itself can come unglued, we often double down on solemnity. We set intentions, we journal earnestly, we speak in hushed tones about the work. But what if the medicine isn't always asking for more weight? What if it's asking you, can you take a joke? That's pretty cool.
It is. The cosmic joke. Ask enough psychonauts about their experiences and a pattern emerges. At some point, things get funny. Not surface level funny, cosmic fun. Kind of laughter that bubbles up when you realize how seriously you've been taking something that might not be that serious at all. That kind of comes from your identity loosens, it grips, and the whole performance of you reveals itself a little ridiculous. People describe it differently. It felt like the universe was winking at me, and I couldn't stop laughing at how obvious everything suddenly was. It was profound and also completely absurd. Humor shows up at the exact moment rigid meaning structure begins to dissolve. It's what feels like when the mind encounters paradox and doesn't know whether to panic or laugh, and choose laughter. In that sense, humor isn't something you bring up after the trip. It's already baked into the experience itself. Why humor actually works. It's not just vibes. There's a reason laughter feels so relieving. According to science, it's doing real work in the body and brain. Humor interrupts rumination loops, that post-trip spiral of what did it mean, increases cognitive flexibility, helping you to see your experience from multiple angles, reduces stress hormone like cortisol, shifting you out of a threat state, creates psychological distance without disconnection. You can hold something heavy without being crushed by it. In other words, humor helps you metabolize the experience without getting stuck inside it, where seriousness can sometimes lead to overanalysis. Humor introduces movement, and integration at its core. It's all about movement. This is neat.
Yeah, lessons from the merry pranksters. If there's a historical blueprint for humor as integration, it might be Ken Kesey and the Merry Pranksters. Kesney's introduction to LSD didn't come through free-spirited cultural or countercultural experiment. It came through the U.S. government-funded study. In the early 1960s, he volunteered for what later would be revealed as part of the CIA's MK Ultra program, an attempt to explore whether psychedelics could be used for mind control. About as serious as it gets. But if you listen to the accounts of Kesney's first experiences, what actually unfolded wasn't control, it was collapse. Not of his mind, but of the rigid structures he had taken for reality. It cracked things open through surreal, imaginary absurdity and a kind of cosmic mischief that pointed to something deeper. The whole thing might not be as fixed or as serious as what we think. Instead of retreating into analysis, Kestney responded in kind. He painted a school bus in day-glow color, named it Further, and set off across America with a crew of friends who would become known as the Merry Pranksters, as an ever-shifting collective devoted to chaos, creativity, and what could only be described as advanced play. Through costumes, music, pranks, and sensory overload, they turned integration into a lived communal experience. Their famous San Francisco acid test dissolved the need to pin meaning down in the first place. And beneath all the color and chaos was a surprisingly precise insight. When you take things too seriously, you shrink the vastness of existence down to the size of your personal drama. Humor was their way out. Years later, Grateful Dead tour manager and honorary prankster Sam Cutler put it best. What's the definition of enlightenment? The ability to lighten up. What humor-based integration actually looks like. So what does this mean in practice? It can look like telling the story of your trip in a way that captures its absurdity, not just its lessons. Noticing that you're getting overly serious about figuring it out and gently laughing at that impulse. Sharing funny or weird moments from your experience with trusted friends. Letting confusion be amusing instead of frustrating. Watching comedy, doing improv, or engaging in play in the days after a journey. It's less about your experience, turning your experience into a punchline, and more about allowing lightness to be a part of how you process it. And I would agree, there's something to be said about humor.
I agree as well. A necessity caveat. Let's be, or we're still on it, right?
Yeah.
All right. Let's be clear. Humor is not a replacement for depth. Some psychedelic experiences surface real trauma, grief, or destabilizing material that requires careful, structured integration. These are moments where levity would feel out of place, levity, or even avoided. The art in timing and knowing where to go deep and when to come up for air. When used well, humor doesn't erase the hard parts, but it can help you carry them. A new wave of integration. This balance is starting to show up in the newer approaches to psychedelic work. At the retreats like Dennis Walker's Laughter is Medicine in Jamaica, the container still includes traditional elements, a deep dive mushroom ceremony, but expands to include stand-up comedy, improv workshops, music, and play. There's even a low-dose mushroom-enhanced play day. Co-host Andy Subrock has been leading psilocybin mushrooms retreats for 8 years. Says Walker, and the dominant themes in the industry are deep shadow work and trauma releases, but if the stated goal of the psychedelic industry are deep shadow work and trauma release, but what comes after you heal? This retreat was born out of the sense of the next frontier, an experience that treats play, fun, and humor as integral components of a life well lived rather than frivolous sideshows. Maybe this is the beginning of somehow new a wave of summer camps for adults where joy and silliness are seen as essential parts of being alive. You want to read the last part of that?
Yeah, care deeply, go lightly. Our seriousness is not a sign of wisdom, Alan Watts said. It's a symptom of forgetfulness. Maybe that's part of what psychedelics remind us of. That beneath all of the striving and meaning making, there is something inherently playful about existence, something that doesn't need to be solved, just experienced. Humor makes that depth livable. So yes, do the work, face what needs to be faced, but don't forget to laugh. A full body, uncontrollable, what the hell is going on kind of laugh. the kind that reminds you you're still here, alive, and in the middle of something vast, mysterious, and at times hilariously strange. That's a really cool way of looking at things. I really like that, and I think that there is a lot to be said about that, for sure.
Oh yeah. I enjoyed it very much. High Times. I like High Times, and I believe Josh is gonna continue taking High Times with his team, and as he pulls people that didn't have a voice, that were advocates in the world, now are starting to come on with the magazine. Oh man, it's awesome! Great article, and that is going to be that is going to be the last article of the show tonight. So we'll leave you on a good note, on a high time note. So thank you for joining us here on Psychedelic Reporters on NLK Network, and for tuning in to our video podcast on NLK Network's Rumble and YouTube page, as well as our social media sites.
That's right, folks. We hope you enjoyed your update today of mainstream media coverage of psychedelic medicine advancements from around the globe.
Many thanks to our sponsors, and to my joint hosts, Tara Simpson, and to Buffalo Various for choosing the stories, and to you, our listeners, for joining each week on Psychedelic Tuesday. And thank you, Kim Cooper, for helping us produce the show in the background, like pressing buttons, smoking dab, and just doing your thing. Oh, wait, shit. Where's my lights? Okay, so let's hear from Dead Ringer again, from Kirkland Lake. I should have done it like Kermit does. Let's hear from Kermit. That was bad. I did bad, Kermit. Let's hear from Dead Ringer again from Kirkland Lake on our way out.
Looking at myself, reflections of my mind. It's just the kind of day to leave myself behind. So gently swaying through the fairyland of love. If you'll just come with me